We're at HackFest. Thanks everyone for coming. This is my contact info over here. It's totally fine, and I encourage you all, if you want to contact me anytime for any reason, and if I can help, I will. I love doing that. Thanks. Oops, let's get the slides going. There we go. Thanks for taking the time to let me share some of my experience with you, and I hope it can be at least of some interest and maybe some inspiration. To get into what I'm going to talk about, I want to share just a little bit of my background, which might be relevant. I've always been a geek. As a little kid, I've always been mostly into electronics, but like, how do things work? You know, take things apart, put them back together. Sometimes they even work again. And as a little kid, that's a great way to learn. And as an adult, it's a great way to learn. But anyways, I've done a bunch of things in my life as a geek. In the late 1980s, me and a few other people pioneered VR, virtual reality, and we even coined the term. And in late 1990s, I started my own company, which was kind of a silly thing to do, but it was successful. And since 2003 to present, I've been working on projects that are much more near and dear to my heart. And in particular, TV Be Gone is my invention, which turns off TVs in public places. And that's all it does, and I've made a living on it for 20 years. And I even have a TV Be Gone kit so that other people can learn from it and make their own. I do give workshops all over the world, big ones, little ones, whatever. I just love sharing stuff like this, and it's really fun to share people who want to with people who want to learn. And so I've made a whole bunch of different kits. Here are just a few of them for people who are total beginners to be able to learn to solder and to learn electronics if they want to as well. Yeah, these are just a few of the kits: TV Be Gone, Ardu Touch, Brain Machine. And I go around the world quite often giving talks. Again, big ones, little ones, doesn't matter, as long as people are into learning from what I have to share, and of course I can learn from others when I'm doing this too. In 2007, I started one of the early hackerspaces in the US. It's called Noisebridge in San Francisco, and it became an example, along with several others, for other people to start their own hackerspaces. So yeah, I've had a few accomplishments in my life, and yeah, I'm super grateful to be able to have done these kind of things. But I didn't start off my life feeling confident enough and happy enough to do any of these kind of things. I grew up horribly depressed as a kid, total depressed blob of a kid, and brutally bullied, targeted for being an introverted geek, for being fat, for being gay, for being bad at sports, for not caring who wins a game, beaten daily by bullies, often while the gym teacher watched. And my parents were also depressed, so they were no help at all. They were just absorbed with their own depression and couldn't deal with me and my pain. So when I got home, I attempted to escape this terrible reality by retreating into the magical world of television. On television, kids, unlike me, were beautiful, had loving parents, understanding friends, problems that were resolved by the end of the show. And comparing myself to them, I would become more depressed. But then there'd be another show to try to forget it again. And then that show would end. But there'd be another show, and I could forget it again for a half an hour. And then there'd be another show, and time would go away, and I would learn nothing. I would just sit there eating junk food, getting fatter in front of the screen, not learning how to deal with other kids, not learning anything useful. And that would make me more of a target when I got back to school, only to make me want to retreat into TV again when I got home. TV, yes, was my first of several, as it turns out, addictions. Yeah, so time went away. Show by show, day by day, year by year. time goes away. But I eventually did learn through a long process to living a life that I love living. And if you're interested, I'm happy to share a lot of that at another time. But the main thing that started me on that long process of learning to live a life that I love living, worth living, was to get rid of all of the TVs from my apartment, all of them, away from my life. And I quit TV for good in 1980. And that was a great move for me. I had lots of time, life improved, I could make new choices with what to do with my time, and I put a lot more time into my geeky projects, became really good at it, good enough so that I could start helping small companies with their projects. And I became a consultant, and that's how I made a living for quite a long time in my life. But in 2004, 2003, I started working on this project that was super important for me, which was TV Be Gone. And in 2004, I had it ready, and I decided I would share it with the world. But I just made it for me, because I hate TV. It took so much of my life away, and when they started appearing in public places, I couldn't do anything about it, but I'm a geek, so I knew I could make a remote control to turn them all off, so I did. And it worked. And it turned out that other people thought it was cool too. And that's why I decided to make a bunch of them and share them with others. And I didn't know how many I could sell, but I thought I could at least break even. But it turned out that I've sold over 880,000 of them in the last 20 years, and that's how I've made a living with some friends on this project that I made for me, that was meaningful to me, that turned out it was meaningful for others, and people bought them, and I've been supported by that, for which I am also very grateful. And it's been really wonderful to make a living on a project that I love. But I mostly bring up these glimpses of my past because so many people, including myself, have this bizarre notion that other people are better and cooler than oneself. And I've always believed this. So many people I know and meet believe this. But nobody starts off accomplished in their life. We have a lifetime of living to get to where we are now, and we have a lifetime to go. And we can continually, if we choose to, learn from our past experience, even the experiences that are totally horrible. We can learn from them and use them for our advantage and to help us and the people around us. And if we do that, we might even be supported in doing it, which is often the case. So I had a really rough time as a kid, but as an adult, I love living my life. But none of us here probably were the cool kids in our schools. We all had to deal with that somehow and get to adulthood so we can live our lives. Even as not the cool kids. I've never been the cool kid. But this talk is about community. All of us need community, even the uncool kids, even introverted geeks like me and probably most of you. We all need community. It's a deep inner need in all of us so that we can feel part of others, part of something bigger than ourselves. To feel great about living our lives, we need that feeling. We need it. It's important. We can live on our own as introverted geeks. We're quite often on our own, working on our own projects, and that's totally cool, but we still have to feel that we're connected to a community, to something bigger than ourselves. And yet, there is so little of it in our lives. In our modern world, there's so little community. Some of us may be lucky enough to have a family of origin that is supportive and gives us much of what we need. But for too many of us, we don't have that. And likewise, places of worship could, in better circumstances, give us the community that we need, or at least some of it. But this doesn't work for too many of us nowadays. Schools can and should be great communities, but too often they're just places to learn to take tests and compete with one another. Some of us are lucky enough to have jobs where we have some community, where we feel really good to be there. But for most of us in our modern world, it's a place where we're just struggling to try to get by. Technology promises always, almost always, to bring us together. But rather than bring us together, we're just feeling alone. Even if we're with other people, we're feeling alone and alienated, staring at a screen. And now with the small screens we all carry in our pockets and take with us everywhere, it's so much worse. How often do you see things like this? These are supposedly friends, and yet what are they doing? They're staring at their little screens. They're not dealing with one another. They're supposedly connected with the world. Does that look... Anyways, community. We can do a lot on our own, but we can do so much more in a supportive community. Back at the beginning of our species, we were not big and brawny like Godzilla or tigers who could survive on their own. We had big brains, and with our big brains and our thoughts and feelings and emotions and everything put together, we got together in supportive community to support each other to survive in a sometimes hostile environment. We would teach tools and work on projects together to improve our lives, to make our lives better, and for survival. And we did survive way back then. And because we survived, the need for community survives with us all the way till today and beyond. Community, the need for community is a part of us. It is a deep inner need. It is in our DNA. We need community. And although we no longer need community for mere survival, we still need community to feel part of something bigger than ourselves, to thrive in our lives. And as geeks, we do form community in a big way, such as here at HackFest, or at many, many other hacker conferences around the world. Whether here, there's a talk I gave in Brazil, or in India, in Germany, various places, whatever. I've been to hundreds of these kind of events, hacker conferences. My first one, though, I was invited to give a talk about TV Be Gone in 2006 at this conference, Hope number 6. Hope is Hackers on Planet Earth, which happens every 2 years in New York. It had been going on for a long time. I'd never even heard of hackers or hacker conferences. What does that mean? But I went there because I was invited, and I had an incredible time. It was the first time in my entire life where I felt not only okay, but great about being in a group of people. Groups of people as a kid meant I was probably going to get beaten up. But here, it was people teaching and learning and sharing things that they loved. People wanted to learn from me. I learned from others. It was so incredible. A vast majority of people here loved doing what they did, which is sadly not like society at large. But there were lots of talks. There were some workshops. There was lots of music. There were films. There was food. People were sharing so much. I could just be myself, my own introverted, geeky self. It felt so wonderful to be there. And when it ended, 3 days later, I knew I wanted to go to the next one, which I did. And the next one for me happened to be in Berlin, Germany, where I met so many people who I'm still friends with today, and that's the city I now live in. That was the 23rd Chaos Communications Congress put out by the Chaos Computer Club, a fantastic group of hackers. These conferences now are thousands of people, 15,000 people. The next one is in December. There will be 15,000 people. 15,000 of our closest friends will be there. And this was, again, as cool or cooler even than Hope was a few months earlier for me. Again, I felt great being in a group of people. There were all these presentations, workshops, talks, music, food, all of this cool stuff. And this was the first time where there was a public presentation of what they then called a microcopter, which was 4 computer fans hooked to a thing and controllers in the middle, and they could remotely control it, and it flew, and it had lots of LEDs all over it. Now we call these things drones, and they're all over the place. But that was the first time it blew me away. There were so many cool things there. And of course, I wanted to go to the next conference that I had an opportunity to go to, and that was a hacker camp outside of Berlin, Chaos Communications Camp in 2007. A long time ago now, but this had lasers, you know, like lasers, real lasers. Back then, lasers were not so normal, and there was a rocket ship again, and there were all these talks. I gave workshops, and there was one talk in particular about how to start your own hackerspace. With a hackerspace in your hometown, you wouldn't have to wait for the next hacker conference and travel all the way there to get all the cool things that were available from these wonderful events. You could go to your own hackerspace any time of day or night, any day, all year round. This talk inspired me and several friends of mine who were there to go home and start our own hackerspaces, and that's what we did. We started 3 of the early hackerspaces in North America, which were in San Francisco, Noisebridge, Hack DC in Washington, DC, and NYC Resistor in New York City. And we all helped each other, and we got help from the 40 or so hackerspaces that existed in the world, mostly through Chaos Computer Club, CCC, in Germany, where most of the hackerspaces existed. We didn't know it when we were doing this, but we were starting a movement, the hackerspace movement. So many people were really excited about watching us do what we did and seeing if it would be at all successful, and it turned out it was, and we became examples for so many other hackerspaces in the world. And we were helping other people form them, and we were helping each other with the problems that we had as we went along. Each hackerspace is unique. There's no central organization that controls anything. This is just people forming communities that are perfect for the group of people at each place. Each one perfect for the people there, doing the things that the people there want to do, to explore, to support each other, and encourage each other to explore, to do the things that people might think are cool and interesting and hopefully fabulous and wonderful and things they're passionate about. Each hackerspace still, to this day, helps other hackerspaces to do what they do and to solve problems as they come up. And there will always be problems, and we can always improve. So what is a hackerspace? Well, it's a physical space where people come together in community. And the community is there to encourage people and support each other into exploring, to do what each person thinks is really exciting, hopefully what each person loves. And that's a continual process that just goes on and on. It is way, way cooler and more interesting than anything on the internet. It's way bigger and way better than anything that these technologies have to offer. But it's about the community. That's the main thing, bringing people together. Any excuse to bring people together for something that people think they'll enjoy is worth doing. People are there to teach and learn and share, just like throughout all of the history of humanity. And this is now. We can do this, and we do. At Hackerspaces, we often want to make things. So we gather the resources together to get the tools that we want and need, and we can have any kind of tool, big, old, simple, complex, whatever, all sorts of tools. But as cool as the tools are, it's not about the tools. It is about the community. People coming together, encouraging and supporting each other to teach, share, and learn, and to do all of the things we do, and to keep exploring. We can make way cool things, whether it's in tech, electronics, computers, which is what most people think of when they think of hacking, whatever. But it's not just about that. It's about so many different things, whatever people are interested in, whether it's arts and crafts, or fabricating mechanical things, or music, or food, lots of food hacking, biology, science, whatever. People coming together to do the things they think might be cool for them, and being encouraged to do that. No one asks, why are you doing that? That's a horrible thing to ask someone. You encourage people, whatever they're doing. It's a wonderful feeling, whatever people might be interested in. And it's for all people, of all races, all ages, all backgrounds, economic, whatever, young people, old people. When we do these things, we have an incredible sense of accomplishment on our own and together. And we gain a sense of confidence that we bring out with us wherever we go for the rest of our lives. And a bit about the word, hack, hacking, hacker. A lot of people find that negative because the mainstream media in the US use that word to talk about criminals who broke into computers and took stuff and made some nasty things happen. But long before that, it was a positive turn. It's the original name back even up till 2007. But you know, people come up with Makerspace or Fab Lab, but who cares as long as there's supportive community to come together. I still like the original word, Hackerspace, because people coming together in community, it's not about just making a thing. It's about so much more. Well, what is hacking then? There are so many definitions. And if you ask 1,000 hackers, you'll get more than 1,000 definitions. But here's my definition. You see the world as full of resources, and the world is full of resources. Some resources were put there, some were put there for some reasons and not others. Some were just there, some are naturally there, some is considered garbage, but whenever we see something, we can consider it a resource and we can use it for whatever we want to improve our projects, whatever that project might be. We can use the resources that we see and come by in the world to improve our projects, whatever they are, and then we see what works, what doesn't work so well, and we share that with others. And that is what hacking is all about. And most importantly, we do this because it's incredibly enjoyable. Hacking, like I said, is more than about just making a thing. It's a mindset, a way of living, a way of being, and it's a great way to live. We're constantly learning and growing and improving, and we can do that on our own, but we can do that so much better in community. When you put community together with hacking in this positive sense in a physical space, that is what a hackerspace is. All unique, depending on the people who form it and run it and go there. So what can be hacked? Well, since it's a mindset, it's not about what you hack. Of course, people, again, think of electronics, tech, whatever, but it can be all those things I showed before, arts and crafts, science, ourselves. We are a lifelong living project that can constantly be improved and therefore hacked. Our communities can constantly be improved and hacked. The planet seriously needs improvement, constant improvement, especially now. If we don't do it, who will? Everything can and should be hacked, including education. Education, as I said earlier, should be about learning and not being trained to take standardized tests. The tests are supposed to be about evaluating the learning, and yet there we are sitting in rows and columns with an authority figure at the front reacting to a bell every hour, being trained to take standardized tests. Is that education? Well, yeah. But can we do better? Hell yeah, we can do way better than that. I was in school and university for 25 years of my life, and I learned most of what I did through test-based learning. And I learned a lot. But I learned so much more in the few small opportunities that I had at labs at my university and, lucky enough, in my high school. The labs where we cooperated with each other, helped each other, and explored and found projects that we found super fascinating, and then we were highly motivated to learn as much as we could to make our projects as awesome as possible. This was where I learned almost all of what I learned in school and university. We learn so much better through play than through tests. We play and learn differently at different ages in our life, but we can, if we choose to, if we want to, play and learn throughout our lives. In support of community at Hackerspaces and other places, we're encouraged to explore and find things we love through playing. This is so much fun. It's so cool to be part of all of that with other people. And when we find a project that we think is exciting, one that we're passionate about, we're then motivated to learn as much as we can to make our projects way, way better. This is indeed what happens at Hackerspaces. It's what could happen in schools and sometimes happens at schools, but it is what happens in a supportive community at Hackerspaces, where everyone's encouraged to explore and find the projects that interest them, that they're meaningful for them. And they find these projects. Each of us finds these projects, and we keep exploring until we find them. And therefore, Hackerspaces are fantastic learning environments. This is what schools could be, but too often aren't. Education can and should be about a lifetime of learning, and not just taking a test and leaving it behind in your past. It should be learning how to learn so we can learn and play for the rest of our lives and keep learning. And this is what we do at Hackerspaces. Excited to get out of bed every day to see what will happen when we go there, unlike school. Not many people wake up in the morning and go, "Ugh, I have to go to the hackerspace." How many of us felt that way waking up to go to school? We can do everything I just said, of course, on our own, except the community part, but we can do it so much better in community. And we can find projects we love when we're encouraged to do so. And we do. And we find projects we're passionate about this way. Each person finding projects that they find way wonderful. Whether it's electronics, art, craft, all these things, biology, science, fabrication, mechanical things, we find projects that we personally find meaningful. And the thing that's way interesting is when you find a project that's meaningful for you, that you think makes your life better, it's very likely that other people in your community and surrounding the community will also find it meaningful. And if others find what you do meaningful, quite often they're willing to support you to do that, to share your project with them. They're willing to support you to do that. That is, in other words, called a small business with a product that you sell. You can, if you want to, find such a project and then have a startup worth starting, unlike so many of the incredibly stupid startups in the world. You've probably noticed there are a lot of startups in the world. You've probably also noticed that most of them are stupid. They really are stupid. They're not there because they're putting something meaningful into the world. They're there to make VCs, venture capitalists, vulture capitalists, get a return on their investment. This does not make the world a better place. It just sucks your energy out in order for these people to make some profit. Okay, enough ranting about them. Back to the topic. Okay, so we can have a startup worth starting if we have a project that's meaningful to us and we find it's meaningful to others and we're willing to share it with them. They're willing to support us for it. We have products and services for just that. And we can make a living on a project that we love. It is possible. I did that with TV Be Gone, accidentally, and so many other people have done this too. This person is one of the people who co-founded MakerBot, which started the whole 3D printer thing. And there are so many more. You might find that if people like what you do, what you share, and they're buying your thing, your product, your service, that you'll need some help. Small businesses often need help. And you can draw from people within your community, and if it's popular enough, from the surrounding community, and hire them to help. This helps the local economy greatly. And it creates vibrant local economies around hackerspaces, which is one reason why they're supported by local governments. This reason, plus educational environments, plus being places for solving problems and for personal growth, is what makes hackerspaces grow so quickly. From only about 40 back in 2007, we didn't even know how many, mostly in Germany, to thousands in the world now and still growing. Let me show you just a few examples of a glimpse of coolness in hackerspaces. I've been to hundreds and hundreds around the world. I learned from all of them, share what works and doesn't work. From what I learned at these hackerspaces and the one I helped start in San Francisco, Noisebridge, and we kind of cross-pollinate. There are a lot of people going around the world doing this. I've been to hundreds and learned so much by doing that, and it's really cool to be visiting these places. And if you walk around in the main room, you'll see lots of people from hackerspaces there who are also willing to share and say what works and doesn't, and you can learn from them, and you can share with them what you've learned. This is what makes it happen. But anyways, I've got a few photos from hackerspaces where I've given workshops through the years. Here's one in Tokyo. Each hackerspace is unique. Again, perfect for the people who are there, who started it, who run it, who keep it happening. But each one's unique. Each is different. This one is really close to here. He's responsible. He's one of the people who makes it really happen. And he also makes this happen, HackFest. So it's a really wonderful community. And if you haven't been there, I encourage you all to check it out. Here in Enschede. Here's one in Brussels. These are all from workshops I've given, which are electronics. So they look like electronics mostly, but there's so many different activities that go on at hackerspaces besides electronics, and I want to emphasize that. Each is unique. It's about what the people there want to do. Here's in Amsterdam, Brussels again, another space, in Brazil, Sao Paulo, London. Yeah, teaching, learning, sharing wherever in the world. Here's in Arnhem. There's a lot more hackerspaces in the Netherlands as well. I've been to a bunch in China, helped some form there. Lots of cool spaces. There are a lot of hackerspaces in the world, including here in Netherlands. But I wanted to mention, if you want to learn to solder and learn some electronics, I've got a workshop at the end of the hall over there where I can teach soldering. I love doing that. And here's a map from hackerspaces.org, a website we started as a resource for hackerspaces to learn from and get better and support each other. I encourage you all, if you aren't already a member, to join one. They are all welcoming. They're all friendly. They're all encouraging communities, supportive communities. And if there isn't one where you live, start one. That's how hackerspaces start. People like you, all of you, that's how they start. They start with people like you starting one. And that's the only way they start. And you are not alone in this. There are hackerspaces all over the world willing to support you. There's also hackerspaces.org with a lot of resources. I'm also willing to help, and there are many other individuals who are willing to help. Contact me if you like, anytime. Here are a couple of resources just to start with. They're really great resources for any kind of community, but specifically for hackerspaces. Hackerspace, just search for them. You don't have to memorize these. Links, Hackerspace Design Patterns that's the PDF of what they showed in 2007 that inspired me and so many other people. And I wrote an article in Make Magazine about how to start a hackerspace. So let's try new things. Let's come together and explore and encourage others to explore. Maybe we can help make our lives a little better and the lives of those around us better. We can, and it feels great to do that. We should all be doing that. It's way cool. In community, we can do so much more than on our own. We can empower each other so that individually and collectively, we can do so much more than on our own. We can create more opportunities for ourselves and those around us and everyone in the world, hopefully. Worth a try? Well, that's up to you. So thanks for your time, and here again is my contact info.